We're going to take a look at our next example. So once again, it says determine the measure of the marked angles in each of the following diagrams. And to help me out, I do have a little reference sheet of the 7 theorems that we've learned so far. And I really recommend that you make one maybe a little bit bigger for yourself while you're doing these questions. So when I look at this picture, I notice that I have a bunch of different lines, but I also spot these arrows, which are parallel line markers. So what I would recommend doing, and this is really hard to do if you're doing it on the computer, but if you're doing it on paper, I would absolutely recommend turning your page so that the parallel lines are horizontal. It is easier to see the patterns than it is when you're looking at them sideways. So I would try turning my page so that my parallel lines are horizontal, and then try to solve from there. So I have an angle here of 135 degrees. So that's where we're going to start because that's the one I actually know. You can try to do them in alphabetical order, but you don't have to. Sometimes I just look to see what pattern jumps out at me, and I try to focus on things that don't involve a lot of calculation. So if I'm looking at my parallel line patterns, I have Z pattern, F pattern, and C pattern. This is outside of the parallel lines. Z pattern, those two angles are inside those parallel lines. Same thing with C pattern, they're also inside the parallel lines, but F pattern has one on the outside and one on the inside. So that means 135 degrees, and this angle here, X, should make F pattern, which means that X should be 135 degrees. So for my theorem, I am going to write F or F pattern. Very hard to squish that in that box. You could alternatively call it by its official name, but that's a lot of words to write down. Do I need calculations? Nope. It's just 135 degrees. And then I'm going to label that on my picture because it might help me find one of my other angles. Okay, so I'm going to come back to the picture. I'm going to turn it sideways again so that these are horizontal. I need to find another angle. So I now know this one on the inside. I could jump and find Y because these together make a C pattern, right? I have two angles on the inside of the parallel lines on the same side. So I could find angle Y by using C pattern. So these two angles should add to 180 degrees. So I'm going to try using C pattern. So I'm going to say that Y plus 135 equals 180 degrees. And then subtract 135 from both sides, which should be 45 degrees. So this is 45 degrees. Okay, I'm going to label that on my picture. And then take one last look and see if I can figure out how to find Z. Now, there are two different things I could do to find Z. I notice that Z and X, which is 135, that they together make a straight line. So I could say Z plus 135 equals 180 degrees. But if I try to use the parallel lines to my advantage, this angle here and this angle here form a Z pattern. Z pattern doesn't require any calculation, and I'm all for that. So I could just say that Z is 45 degrees because of Z pattern. I like the idea of using Z pattern to find angle Z. So I'm going to write Z pattern. Doesn't need any work, so just a line there, and it is 45 degrees. All right, we've got one more question to go.